Here's a great way to keep motivated through winter. Start a YouTube channel and commit to making one video a week, even when it's 4 degrees outside and your mates have bailed out on the ride. Good morning and welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a solo ride on this very early cold Sunday morning in Essex. Yes, I'm out on my own today for various reasons. My usual riding group friends have all either got prior engagements or they're not feeling too well. Get well soon, Jimmy. But it's important to still get those miles in, so I'm out on my own, even though, yeah, it's 4 degrees today, or around about 40 Fahrenheit. It is a cold one. But that is actually a pretty good segue into what I wanted to talk about today anyway, and that is keeping yourself motivated to keep getting on the bike, even when it's freezing cold and dark in the winter. So these are my top tips to keep yourself inspired to keep getting out on the bike, even when it's cold, dark, rainy and windy outside. Let's dive in. So my first tip is setting yourself a goal or a target that you need to hit before the end of the year. Now it could be anything from mileage ridden to elevation ridden, or just getting out for a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles every day, every weekend. It can literally be anything. Now, if you watched any of my videos from last year, you may well know that I set myself a goal of riding 2,023 miles in 2023. And while I know that doesn't seem like a huge amount of mileage, do bear in mind that I am essentially just a recreational rider. I do, unfortunately, have a full-time job, so getting out on the bike isn't always the easiest, especially when I've got 2 young kids at home and a wife with a DIY list as long as my arm. And that 2023 mile goal last year was actually really helpful at keeping me motivated, even to the point where just a week before New Year's Eve, I found myself with about 160 miles deficit, so decided to ride from my home in Essex down through London to Richmond Park and back, a full journey of 100 miles. And thanks to that, I've just about managed to squeeze the 2023 miles in. And if you can't think of any of your own challenges, then there are loads on Strava. If you go into the challenge section, you find loads for cycling, running, swimming, loads of different activities where when you complete them, you either earn a badge on Strava or you can get some money off discounts for some big brands. So they are definitely worth a look. So yeah, set yourself some goals and that will definitely stop you from continuously hitting that snooze button on a Sunday morning. So this next one is sort of the antithesis of what I'm doing today, and that is because it's riding with friends or just in a group. Now I normally ride out with a group of buddies, but as I say, for one reason or another, they are not available today. But if you can get yourself out in a group, you'll find that it's much more fun and enjoyable. I remember a good few years ago, Jimmy and I were riding down to London to do a little bit of practice for our London to Paris ride. And at that point, riding to London, which is about 35 miles or so, was a bit of a task. We were fairly new to long distance riding at that point, and we were both, I wouldn't say nervous, but there was a little bit of trepidation about how well we'd get on and how long it would take us. However, thanks to the absolute inane rubbish that we were chatting the whole way along the way, before we knew it, we were an hour into the ride, 17 miles down, and we didn't even realise it. Also, making plans to go out riding with friends stops that alarm going off in the morning and you thinking, sod this, I can't be bothered. Because if you've made plans with friends, then generally speaking, you wouldn't want to let them down. So you do force yourself up out of bed. And one final thing of riding with friends, and it's probably sort of specific to me, but also specific potentially to a lot of other parents of young kids, in that when you do have young children at home, you don't always have the time to go out and see your friends. So having a nice excuse like a bike ride to go out and socialise and just spend a bit of time with them is always a good thing. So yeah, find yourself some friends or a local group ride, get out there and get riding. And if you don't know anyone that cycles, get yourself onto the British cycling website, search your local area, and you'll find loads of groups local to you where people, I'm sure, will be very welcoming and love to have you along for a ride. Now this one might seem a little bit strange, but believe me, when you wake up in the morning and you suddenly remember, oh, I didn't get my kit ready last night, I've got to get my shoes, my bib shorts, my jersey, got to find my buff, my helmet, where are my gloves? It can be a huge demotivator. So getting your kit ready the night before can really help when you wake up in the morning, you know where everything is and you're ready to go. Now me personally, I put everything on the radiator the night before, and the radiators are always set to come on about half an hour before I get up. So when I do wake up, I can throw on some nice warm cozy kit. And believe me, if you have never experienced putting on a pair of bib shorts with a warm chamois. Oh my God, it's like angels cuddling your soul. Take it from me, you have to try it. Now, talking about preparing your kit leads me nicely onto the kit that you need. You know that saying that there's no such thing as the wrong weather, just the wrong clothing choice? Well, that couldn't be truer in the winter on a bike, because there is nothing worse than going out in a few of your summer bits thinking, that'll be fine, and then freezing your toes, fingers and nose off for 2 hours. Yeah, that's not going to make you want to get up next weekend and do it all over again. So for me today, as you can see, I'm wearing my merino wool buff. I've got a long sleeve merino wool jersey. Under this, I've got a merino wool gilet, and then a jersey, and under that, a merino wool base layer, as well as my Galibier deep winter gloves, a pair of Galibier merino wool fire feet socks, and then my lake winter boots. Being able to stay warm on the bike massively helps you enjoy getting out on two wheels, and it means that you're much more likely to do it again next time. And it doesn't need to be expensive stuff either. I covered this in a recent video on my 10 winter cycling essentials, so if you haven't seen that, go and check it out, because I discuss there how you can pick up some great winter cycling kit that doesn't break the bank. And yes, before you say it, I know I'm wearing bib shorts in 4 degrees Celsius, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, I just cannot get on with bib tights. I don't like the way they feel around the back of my knees. They feel constricting and uncomfortable, so you will always find me, whatever the weather, in bib shorts. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, because it's probably not good for your knees, and I'm probably going to pay for it in a good few years' time. But for now, I'm throwing caution to the wind. It's bib shorts for me. Now, we've spoken about preparing your kit, but now let's talk about preparing your bike, because having a good, clean, well-maintained bike is essential for keeping you motivated to get out on it. There's nothing worse than coming out on a bike with bits clanking and creaking and possibly falling off all over the place to stop your ride. A well-maintained bike will carry you further and faster and just make it much more enjoyable to get out on two wheels. Now, I know I could probably do an entirely separate video on motivating yourself to keep your bike clean after a ride, but it is very, very important. And to be honest, I'm as guilty as the next person for not maintaining my bike properly, or at least not cleaning it after a dirty ride. And if you saw my video from a couple of weeks ago, you'll know that I didn't wash my bike after a ride, and then I left it out in the rain, and my chain went a little bit rusty. And yes, I know you're wondering, and no, I haven't re-waxed it yet. That video is coming soon, I promise. So yeah, keep your bike clean, keep it nice and well maintained, and you'll be able to get out on it for many, many more miles, and make you want to get out on it for many more miles, more importantly. Now, this next one might seem a little bit strange, because most of these tips are geared towards getting out on your bike on the open road, out in nature. But sometimes in winter, it is just impossible to get out. There's snow, there's ice on the roads, conditions are just too dangerous. And so when that happens, you still need to keep your cycling fitness up. And the great way of doing that is to get yourself on an indoor trainer. Now, that too doesn't have to be expensive, because you can get yourself a simple, cheap, dumb trainer, and you can pick them up secondhand for probably about 20 to 30 quid. And then you can get on a program like My Whoosh, which is completely free. However, if you wanted to go a little bit more expensive, you can get yourself a dedicated wheel-off smart trainer, where, as the name suggests, you take your back wheel off the bike and you attach your bike directly to the trainer. That trainer then talks to various programs like Zwift, Ruby, Trainer Road, RGT, and My Whoosh as well, to let you spin your legs in the comfort of your own home, or anywhere that you can set it up. Importantly, somewhere that's nice and warm, with no ice, no snow, and no rain. Now, with the advent of all of these online cycling platforms, it has made winter cycling and winter training a lot more bearable, because previously, sitting on a static bike, staring at a wall, even when you've got a TV program in front of you to watch to try and while away the hours, yeah, it got a bit mind-numbing. And to be honest, as good as Zwift, Ruby, and all those other programs are, for me personally at least, I couldn't do them all the way through the winter, and that be the only riding I do. I do need to get out, and as the cool kids say these days, touch grass. So, my opinion purely, but I wouldn't recommend doing 100% of your training indoors over the winter, but it can certainly help on the worst of days. Now, my next tip requires a little bit of a change of attitude from thinking, God, I've got to go out when it's raining, to yes, I get to go out when it's raining. And I appreciate that that's not easy to do, but if you think of the ride as an adventure that you just have to get through, then it can be a lot more enjoyable and you're a lot more likely to be able to push yourself out. Now, I don't like going out in the rain, but if I do get caught out and it starts to rain on the ride, well, you just have to laugh about it and get on with it, as I did when I climbed Great Dun Fell back last year. This is mental. I'm like a drowned rat. Rethinking the ride as an adventure ride changes something in the brain, changes your attitude towards it, and then just gives you a mental lift and helps you push through. Now again, I'm not suggesting anyone go out purposely when it's raining, but if you've got plans to go out riding and you find that it's raining or it's gonna rain, it shouldn't be the end of your ride. Oh, you did it. Well, I've just come to a stop for a little bit of a cry, if I'm honest, because when we talk about motivating yourself to get out for a ride, one of the biggest motivators is knowing that you can look back on your achievements when you get home, because most of us these days have Strava either on a bike computer or on our phones, and it's nice either just to look back on ourselves or to get a little bit of kudos from friends to show how far we've been riding. Well, I'm about 15 miles into this ride and I've just glanced down to look at my Garmin to see exactly how far I've gone, and yeah, it didn't start when I set off this morning. So I'm currently sat at 0.03 miles. So yeah, there's that. Talk about demotivation. Always remember to put Strava on whatever device you're using and make sure it starts when you set off. Yeah, I'm gonna cry for the next couple of miles. Now, my final tip is all about being good to yourself, and in some ways this goes back to my first tip on setting goals, and that is to say, plan a reward for yourself after a tough ride. Now, it could be anything from stopping at your local favourite cafe, or just making sure you make yourself a lovely warm hot chocolate or one of your favourite biscuits when you get back from the ride. It's just something to look forward to that you wouldn't ordinarily have day to day. A carrot on a stick, if you will. It could also be something like buying yourself a new piece of kit or something for your bike when you've completed one of your cycling specific goals. It sounds silly, but it definitely works, and I know from personal experience, non-cycling experience, that it definitely motivates you and lifts your mood. And I'll explain why by telling a little personal story. When my son was first born 12 years ago, we had terrible problems with feeding him overnight. I won't go into the full details of why, but essentially he would wake up every 45 minutes for a feed. It would take 45 minutes to feed him, and then he'd go back to sleep and wake up another 45 minutes later. And my wife and I were almost at our wits' end, to be quite honest, until one night we decided to bring a pack of chocolate digestives to bed with us, and we decided that every time we wake up we're going to reward ourselves with one biscuit. And I'm not saying that being woken up every 45 minutes through the night became an absolute joy, but having that small little reward made the thought of waking up and feeding for the next 45 minutes a whole lot sweeter. And that helped us get through a good 8 or 9 weeks of nights before my son eventually started to settle and would sleep for a lot longer through the night. So yeah, little rewards. They might sound insignificant, but they definitely help. So those are my top tips for pushing yourself out on the bike over winter, continuing your training, and more importantly, keeping that fitness up. Because, as we all know, winter miles make summer smiles, and if you really want to beat your mates to the cafe next summer, then you've got to put the work in. Let me know if you've got any big motivational tips that help push you out on the bike on a cold, wet morning though. Drop me a comment below, because I always love to see them. But otherwise, I'm off to finish this ride of what should be about 20 miles, but will end up being only 5 on Strava. What an absolute demotivation that is. Right, well anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you find these tips useful. I hope you found the video interesting, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, guys. All by myself, don't wanna be all by myself anymore.